have the muscle in the back standing up, just in case it gets out of hand. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for letting us into God's country. My name is Jay Barbo. I'm the CAO of the municipality, which means that I don't do anything and just watch everybody else do the work. I'll be talking on a high level with respect to the governance and the reason for and blah, 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 and all of that stuff, and all of the fancy sales pitch, so only believe half of what I'm going to say. And the actual intelligent one here from a fire perspective, don't let that go to your head, is Chief, what's your last name? Logan. So, thanks for coming. A bit of a history, a bit of a history way back, once upon a time. So, we have a new council. I have no filter, thank God. And this new council had a term plan, and they basically had a lot of strategies and initiatives that they had. And one of it was, to get policy development and get moving and set the municipality, and do a reset for the municipality on a variety of fronts so that we're actually responsive to the future. And so this you're looking for attention?
No, go ahead.
Okay. So this municipality was an amalgamation, as you all know, of these unincorporated townships and then Field Township, which I believe we're in right now, and 5 amalgamated towns and townships, Sturgeon, Springer, Cache Bay, Caldwell, and Field. And so we basically kind of kept everything as such. And with that, we have a lot of assets that are about 185,000 odd years old. And so council indicated, listen, let's have a look at our assets and let's have a look at our land and buildings that we have no use for or potentially have no use for. And they have to be very careful about that because they may have no use for it now, but they may in the future. So they have to be careful about that too. So we have been not as fast as we would like because there's a lot of politics and change, but we've been bringing properties to them. The first property we brought really wasn't a benefit. Is Councilor from Ward 2 here? Good. Good, he's not here. We had a trailer park, and that wasn't benefiting you, and it was costing us about 50 to 100 grand a year out of taxpayers' money. And so council decided to declare it surplus, and we sold it, and we made about 800 grand, and that went into a reserve so that we can put that money into facilities wherever. This is not a us versus them kind of thing. Wherever council decides. Then there was an island that is just by the bridge called Scouts Island that was sold as well. Nobody was using it for 20 years. Would it be nice for us to have done something? Absolutely, but we're so sparse and we're so it's so difficult to concentrate our efforts that I think it'd be better if whoever bought it did something and made it look better than it was. And so we're doing a few things like that. Extra land that's attached to properties, the land near off at Demers Street by the river in the back there and that kind of thing. So then we brought, here's why you're here, we brought this property, which is Tomiko Fire Station. Now we brought it for 2 reasons. We brought it for that policy reason in general, and we also brought it because we had a fire master plan. Again, this council is into planning and ensuring that we are spending our resources, consolidating our resources to be more effective and efficient. Not just efficiency, we're not trying to save money per se, but we're trying to shuffle resources where they're actually going to be used for the future. And so that's why the Tomiko station was brought forward. And it was brought forward as a result of a fire master plan that was conducted by consultants. And these consultants took an analysis, and they're experts in their field, and they, there's a lot of recommendations that they do that are probably less politically correct, in the sense that there's actually volunteers in certain ones that are recommending amalgamating stations, and perhaps they're not necessarily seeing the local culture with respect that, these local communities that have 15, 20 volunteers, they do much more than fight fires, as you know. They fundraise and they're the backbone of the communities. And so, leaving that aside. So the first one that we felt was something that was pretty clear that we do recommend as staff, I'm not gonna hide that from you, is the Tomiko Fire Station. You know, the Tomiko Fire Station, I've been here 25 years. First of all, let me stop. I have to recognize the people that are in the room, Chief Frank Lufin, and then we have Mayor Kathleen Rochon. Please stand, do a dance. No. We have the councillor from this ward, Katie Nickel. We have the councillor from the opposite end of town. It took them 3 days to get here. Thanks for arriving on time. Councillor George Fadin. And last but not least, we have Rolly Larrabee from Councillor Ward 6, which is my old stomping ground, Deer Lake, River Valley, Cache Lake, and so forth. So that's who's in the room. So back to this. So we recommended closure of that facility. And the reason we recommended closure of that facility is that it was never really used. So it was just there as a place card holder ever since I've been here. I remember Chief Savage, for those of you who have as long a memory as me, there were a few volunteers, but it really isn't enough to be sustainable for actually responding to fires. Many of our fire stations are actually not either, except that they have a certain critical mass. But this one here had probably 5 or 6 at one time.
Members or?
Yeah, members.
Members were in around that, maybe.
Yeah, and then it got down to 2, and then 1, and now there's none. And so in there we had 1 truck,
Yeah.
a pickup truck. That's it right there.
That's it right there.
Oh, that's nice. I know.
It's the old police pickup,
Okay.
just for history.
Oh, so there might be blood. Anyway. So that's why we recommended it. And so we, you know, and to full disclosure, we see this as having an asset that has a value that could potentially be used or sold to somebody who would benefit or use it and maximize it. We would then, as a municipality, take that, add it to the fund, and look at consolidating where council wants to go in the future. So that's basically the analysis. Now, the chief could speak to you about, about a few things, but basically when we fight a fire, we don't count on one station or another anyway. So let's say in Tomiko, you would be getting a call, automatically Sturgeon is dispatched, this would be dispatched, so would Field. And the reason we do that is we need to ensure that there's a critical mass of having enough people that can fight a fire. Back in the day, and I don't know what I'm talking about, it used to be, the standard was about 10 and 20 minutes for rural areas, 10 and 10, and there was all kinds of different things thrown at you. I think they loosened that because no one can meet it, but especially during the day, if you're a year-round person and you're not my age or due to retire, you're at work. And so during the day is when you're more at risk, and that's where we have to call as many out as we can. And so the fact that there was a fire station there really didn't do anything until the rest of the support would come in. Fair enough, Chief?
Yes.
Yeah. So basically, the bottom line is that it is an asset that we don't need, and we don't need from a fire perspective. And then this is about a fire discussion here, now because the delegation to council is don't close our fire station. So really it's about fire protection. And it would not make a difference, and the investment in making a difference, I don't think you'd ever get the amount, I told you, honey, I'm working. The requisite amount of firefighters would never come from there anyway, they would come from here. And this is not picking on you folks. Cache Bay had the same thing where they were down to probably 7 or 8, and they willingly amalgamated with Sturgeon. And so they take all of their training because they understand that you need to, and there's more benefit, because there's one thing to be close to it, but it actually needs equipment and people that are trained to be able to do it, and that's these folks here. And so basically you need to have enough of them. So that's basically the genesis. Now, in terms of looking at the stats, in the last 5 years, you've had 2 call-outs. One was a false alarm, and the other one was a burning complaint. You haven't had a structure fire. Now, heaven forbid, should you have one, fair enough. But as I indicate, sales pitch, there would not be any difference whether you had that there or not. So that's the thing. With respect to insurance, I would suggest to you that, I understood that, but I do have extensive contacts, even in my family, don't shoot me, I'm just related to them, in underwriting and in claims adjustment. And in underwriting, and so I had a place on Deer Lake, which is the same kind of situation, except that I was 12 minutes from Verner and probably 15 minutes from, 15 minutes away. I drive early, but about 15, 20 minutes from field. So even at that, I was a class 5. So the issue is, regardless of where it is, if you were a volunteer fire brigade, they don't count that. And the largest insurance company, Intact, they wouldn't count that. And they underwrite it off of a map. I think the chief has one, if you can see it. Your insurances should not be affected. And I would actually be as controversial to say that if somebody said that it was, I would watch that insurance company on honoring that claim. Because that's not what the industry is saying. I've been friends with the Rivas, Marty Riva. They insured me as a broker when I bought my place 25 years ago. And then, like I say, I know the head of claims at Intact and the head underwriter at Intact Insurance are based in Ottawa. And so I inquired about this. So yes, it is a factor, but it isn't a determining factor on your rates. I'm sorry, but that's the information we have. If there was something else, I would indicate to you too, and the council would have a decision. Hey, we impact our rates, but that's not the information we have. So, so that's where we're at, is that we would be going back to council and talking to them again about what our intention is. And then it's council's decision, A, do they want to close the, do they agree with the staff recommendation? And hopefully a lot of the times they do, but I don't tie my ego to it. If they don't for other reasons, that's fair. And then B, if they do they declare the property surplus? And then at that point, because it's a property that has perhaps a value to any one of you or whatever, then it goes to a bidding process. And so we would then get an opinion of value or an appraisal. If it's very political, we would actually get an appraisal. If we just feel it's, we can get it's about $500,000 or something like that. Because I understand there's a lot of land, or 400,000, I don't know. And then that would be, in general, the reserve bid that council would entertain. And then they would have bids above that, and then if it was acceptable, then they would sell it. So that's how it is, unless there's a push by the community that they have a project or they have a wish. That's a separate discussion from tonight. Tonight is whether it's needed for firefighting services, and it isn't. I can't put it to you any clearer, and it really never was. Really never was. It might have been back in the days prior to amalgamation, where unincorporated townships had come together, which was a beautiful thing, and had rose boards, had fire stations that they got Ontario grants and what have you, and that's probably, this is Field Township, all right?
Okay.
This is Field Township.
It was Grant.
Grant Township?
It was the other side of the road.
Oh, really?
Yep.
So Grant then would have had to get some grants, pardon the pun, and okay, so,
Well, Grant and Field, Crystals and both.
oh yeah? So is there the Hatfields and the McCoys here with that?
Yeah, basically.
Oh, yeah. Which one are you?
I don't know.
So anyway, yeah, so that's the information session. And I would also say the following too, because I've been around. 100 years ago, I was with the town of Rayside Balfour, and I was part of the city of Sudbury. I was very good friends with the president of the Ontario Association of Fire Chiefs. His name was Rob Browning, and this is where the chief is going to come in. Is I think regardless of this, what you need to do is, and the chief is more than prepared to do it, is get into education, enhancement, and enforcement. Rob Browning, when Sudbury amalgamated, there was Cookieganny and Ashiganny Lake, for those of you who are fishing, that kind of thing. He was saying, guys, those communities have to look after themselves. I'm happy to give you free fire or smoke detectors, CO detectors, and educate you on plans and have, as the chief is indicating, what you can do. I had in Deer Lake, I had a pump that was set for fire protection, and it was set to, so that I basically can have it. So personally, I just knew that, that the well-meaning fire department from Burner would take at least 10 minutes to get there, and once a fire started, that's a long time. And so we all need to work as a community, help each other out, and basically get into fire education and support for one another. So I don't know if there's more technical information, Chief.
No, I
that
think
we need to
that's
say.
a good introductory. And,
An introduction, I had nothing, I got nothing else.
So, and again, as our CEO has mentioned, the call volume, again, this is all part of the, going through the history of the calls that we've had out here. I have those numbers. Even for Crystal Falls, we've had a total of 12, and that's dating back from 2021.
What's the nature of the calls too? It's always
So,
interesting.
yeah,
If
so
there's structure fires.
We had 2
Small
burning
structure fires,
controls.
that's a lot.
Yeah. Other responses, so that was trees on trees on hydro lines, stuff like that. Property fire, we had 6 in, since 2021 to 2024. Public hazards, there again, that's trees on the roads, flooding, hydro lines down, stuff like that, 35. Rescues could be anything from automotive incidents, I don't know if we've had any water rescues up here, that's where I'm gonna rely on you guys for some of that information.
Not at all. The last 5 actually was, in the last 2 years. We had a car fire, 2 sauna fires, a grass fire, and there was one I'm missing. But basically 3 out of the 5 were also non-residents. They were properties with trailers on them.
So just for introduction, Robert is our district chief here. So he's been around for quite a while. He's one of our newer recruits. Globe was a member, left for a bit, he's now come back. So these are our members that have a little bit more information in the area. I started in 2022, summer of 2022, so I am familiar. My in-laws had property down on Tomiko as well, so I am familiar with the area. I know what the road conditions are like at certain times of the year. I know what the response time is like to try and get emergency services there. We had the road washout 1 year after heavy rains in the fall, and we were stuck in at my father-in-law's place for 3 days before they could get the lane opened up. So again, there's that remoteness. That being said, we have our agreement with the M&R. So if something major was to come up as far as wildland fires, we have our agreement with the M&R. They're going to send us ground crews. They're going to also send us the water bombers. It's all going to come down to, and there is a lot of crown land within the area, so that becomes part that they have to cover. We'll start the coverage, and then it goes into a whole other thing of invoicing and whatnot. That's nothing to do with you folks. So there's the M&R agreement that we have to offer that extra protection. There's the Fire Smart program, which is basically clearing your property to prevent the fire from spreading closer to your structures and whatnot. That's a whole program that I'm willing to go through and teach. And again, as our CEO has mentioned, there is a level that we need to take responsibility for. Whether it's my house, whether it's my property, whether it's your house, your property, making sure our smoke alarms work, making sure that we prevent stuff when we're burning, if we're having a campfire or something like that, making sure we have water available to make sure that we can control anything and the embers aren't going out of the fire pit when it's windy. So there's a lot of factors that we can do to reduce that risk, and that's a major part of the provincial program from the fire marshal is the public education and prevention side of it. Then it gets into the enforcement side of it, and then it gets into the response and suppression side of it. As mentioned again, so there was the concern with the insurance ratings. This map is through the fire's underwriters, and you're more than welcome to pass it around and take a look at it. Everything in the red zones are what they call a class 5. So your insurance rating is at the lowest it's going to be for that area, or the highest, whichever The only place that you see a green, which is a class 2 insurance rating, is in the town of Sturgeon and Catch Bay, because of the hydrants, because of the fact that there's a full-time fire suppression member on the scene. The orange sections are class 4, which is a little bit better rating, only because you're in the paved roads and possibly a quicker response time. So that's how the insurance companies look at how they're going to rate your property. And again, as Jay had mentioned on that side of it, the underwriters are going to look, they're going to ask you the question, are you close to a fire hall? By definition, the garage in Tomiko was not classified as a fire hall. It wasn't large enough to carry a proper size fire truck. And again, with the fire trucks, they require a minimum of 800 gallons on the truck. They require a response of 15 members, going back to the 10 and 10, that you have to have 15 members available to respond. So there's those factors that also come into play. Understanding, as Jay had mentioned, the response, and since I've been chief, this is something that I've been doing. I'll use whatever resources I have. Whether it's calling the M&R in to assist us with the ground crew, or if I need the airplanes or the helicopters, I will call them. If I need to call in 7 stations out of my 9 stations, I will call the 9 stations in. I have no problem calling in backup staff, backup personnel. Because the reality is, at any time during the day, even here, we have, what, 2 years, Rob?
2 or 3. Yeah.
2 or 3 years available. So I know anytime, eh?
And they're how old?
Carl's a former member as well.
47.
Yeah. So,
27.
and it's not just here in Bristol and Tomiko area that we have this. I have this in Field. I even have this in Sturgeon. In Sturgeon, there's times.
Can I just ask you, where's the closest full-time fireman?
Sturgeon Falls.
Sturgeon is the closest,
And I have
that's the only one?
one member on suppression full-time. The rest of the complement is responding as volunteer.
So would they be the ones who brought the truck?
They would be. We would dispatch the volunteers out of Sturgeon Falls
Yeah.
to bring the trucks up and come up
So
here.
they would bring the trucks, there's no trucks anywhere else, Sturgeon's the
Whoa.
closest?
No, you have these 2 trucks here.
Oh,
You have
that's
the
fine.
mini bumper. You have the mini bumper, and then we have a portable pump in the back of that truck, which is the one that's sitting
Field
in the
will be dispatched as well.
Yeah.
That portable truck, I understand was not working anymore, that's why you're closing the fire hall and.
No.
So, you're counting on it anyway?
The truck, that's why it's moved up to this station, because I do have members here, so now I can get 2 trucks rolling,
It's
yeah.
going to be declared.
I
probably
found that
declared
the pump
service.
was not properly.
It wasn't being maintained, but now we brought it here, we're
Oh, okay.
maintaining.
They're running it, they go down to the river, they
The
run it.
garage is nice, it's in better.
But that pump's a 200-pound pump, so
Yeah.
for one
Yeah.
member to try and lift that out of the back of the
Yeah.
truck,
Yeah,
they're not.
I get it.
It takes, there's 4 handles on those pumps for a reason. It takes 4 people to
Yeah.
properly lift it out.
Or one chief.
A few years ago. Yes.
I have a question. You were talking about the M&R. I talked to the M&R about 2.5 months ago. So they were telling me that in their fiscal year 2025-26, they're going to be doing controlled burns all through the Nipissing forests, all up in our area. They didn't know the exact time, or they want me to contact them at a later date when it's all set up. So how does that work with you? Do you work with them or
Yeah.
everything?
So they notified me. They did one March to the north off of 805 over towards St. Joseph's Road, north of River Valley. They had one that they did to burn off the slash spots. When they do those, they have their water systems, they have everything, they have their pump trucks and everything else. They usually notify us, or they should be notifying us as well, and let us know that way if we do get a call, then we're well aware of what's going on.
Yeah, because that was my main concern, is when they're starting to do the burn. I mean, we get the fire, the planes coming in practicing in front of our
Yeah.
place all the time. So we know they're very good with that. It was just from what they were telling me, the amount of burn that they're planning in the next year and a half is quite a bit, and it's all around us.
Yeah.
And that's.
So the majority of the time, depending on conditions, winds and everything else,
Yes,
they'll do those during the winter time. So they'll usually start them late in the fall, once the snow's on the ground, and burn them off during the winter time.
But
Or
we do
that.
that on a regular basis. I have contact with it, since about 20 years. And we get informed all the time, and they say exactly where they're burning, and everything's fine. And if it's not safe, they're not burning.
yeah, I'm just
So,
wondering how
yeah,
it works with,
yeah, so they notify us when they're putting the plans in for prescribed burns, so that we're aware of it as well. Because they also rely on us as being the first response to get to these fires.
okay, because I know up, if you drive along Tomiko Road, there's an awful lot of deadfall.
Yeah.
And I know most of us here are on properties, but along where there isn't properties or in residents, there's a lot of deadfall, so,
So, and again, if you're traveling and you were to spot something, you would call 911, tell them where it is, we would be responding. Again, the trucks over here, this station would be responding, Sturgeon would be responding, Field would be responding, and I would give the M&R notification that we have a possible bushfire in that area. The other thing is, a lot of the people who fly their private airplanes and stuff around, we get a lot of those calls that come in as well. And I'll get a call from the M&R, do you have somebody burning in a certain area? No, we don't. Okay, well, we're getting a report up in this area. And they'll kind of narrow it down, they'll send their planes in to check it as well, and then if they see that, yeah, okay, this is, whether it's on Crown land or municipal properties, they'll dispatch their crews as well, and then, like I say, we worry about the logistics first, we worry about who pays what later.
okay.
I mean, River Valley, in 2018 was the closest thing we've had to something that was affecting structures. And I remember that, and the amount of resources that, like, we throw all stations, we have about 120 volunteers. We throw everybody at it, they throw everybody at it, it becomes a small town. I had the pleasure of hosting the Northeast Fire Protection. They were out of what we used to call the Children's Center. And so out of Sudbury, that's where they're based for the Northeast, and then they have their bombers here in North Bay. So, you know, in terms of resting assured, this is not a bad place to be in terms of protection, because you're well protected, you're to both.
So if you're also aware, M&R built a new big station and base a few years back, right up at the backside of the airport, at Garland Airport, North Bay. They maintain at least one bomber within the region at all times. If it's not there, it's in Sudbury.
Well, Sudbury's got 2 or 3.
Yeah, Sudbury usually got 2 or 3 unless they send it one out to help other. As you're well aware on Tomiko, and I know from being up there for a lot of years, they come to practice
All
in
the
their
time.
city. So they're well aware of their area as well, and that's part of their reason. Tomiko's a really good lake to pick up on because it's long and narrow. They don't have to worry about it, they can come in, scoop, and off they go again.
Yeah.
So,
Back in the 80s, when I looked after the Ministry of Natural Resources and Land Management, we were looking at lakes, and I suggested Tomiko Lake because it was basically square.
yeah,
Okay,
They come in and
and they started doing it back in the 80s.
yeah.
With those controlled burns, what you're talking about from NRF, the forestry department, they're way into that country.
No,
Because they're
I
not
talked to
allowed-
them, they plan on doing
Yes.
all up in the Crown land, up, you know, around us.
Yes,
That's
Where
not-
they-
but
where
it's
they
far
log.
away from us. I have
It's
to
where they
tell you.
log, they don't go burn in the forest, it's where they log them.
Yeah.
Yes.
More like on bird sites, but it looks like they're a few years behind from what I can see.
Yeah.
They haven't
Yes.
been there.
Yes, they have, they have been burning, like
So-
Frank said last year, I think the year before they have
So
been burning.
Claude works in the bush, and works closely with the M&R. He'd be able to give you information, because again, they have to follow their regulations, for cutting the woods, and where they're allowed to cut, and how they have to clear the lots, create their slash piles, where it has to go, how it has to be protected, and then the M&R also comes in and takes a look at that. So that's very low risk. And the reason for that is the M&R got caught quite a few years back up in Dearmore doing a controlled burn without a control on it. Where they used to burn off undergrowth and stuff to
Yeah.
promote growth, they got caught on all those and it cost them a lot of money, so they don't even do that anymore. But again, all this stuff is coordinated through the
Okay.
municipal fire departments as well as the M&R.
Okay.
Any other questions, concerns?
Just on a curious note, because it's a service we're losing from the town, are we gonna get compensated for it somehow on our taxes?
You're not losing service though.
No.
It's
It's,
a service.
in essence, it is.
No, you're losing it,
It
you're
is.
losing abilities, right? Yeah.
The service is still there, it's still being provided.
Yeah.
The only
Yeah,
difference
if you
is
ask
that-
your insurance company, they'll tell you what is your postal code, and you give them the postal code, and they'll type in, and guess what station you look at? The one by the river. Yeah, down in Sturgeon Falls. That's the closest manned station, they say. I go to the closest
Because
manned
it's
station.
it's man 24/7.
You know, you know, being from Sudbury, a little bit more political in the big town, where they were closing Beaver Lake, that people were following the news in their master plan. Well, Beaver Lake had volunteers. So now you're getting into a discussion, that's about halfway between Espanola and Sudbury. Now you're getting into a discussion, and so if we were going to go and close Crystal Falls, we would be having a discussion like this. We would not be recommending that. We need to have coverage too. And so we felt that the coverage wasn't there. We wouldn't be recommending. This isn't a cost-saving exercise. In fact, in some ways, it could be considered an enhancement exercise. Like I said, the quality of the training that Cache Bay got not because they came to Sturgeon, it's not about Cache Bay and Sturgeon, it's about the critical mass of people that are working together as a team. And so that's what we're trying to do. The other comment I made, without having his head, bust out of that garage door here, but since the chief is here, what we would have been seeing is a decline in our volunteer rate. And I've been after the former chief, you gotta do this, and there was a real apathy. And I can speak here if you want me to create some controversy, I don't care. But there was a real us and them. Would you agree?
Yes,
There's Sturgeon Falls and then the rest of the world.
Yeah.
So since this chief has come in, there's probably 15 to 20 new volunteer recruits. And if you have people that want to volunteer here, by all means, come on in and have a critical mass. The more the merrier, and that's what I love about volunteer. In addition to the fact that it's a place where people congregate, they raise funds, they do a lot of cool things in all of the towns. I find it really cool that you come in here to help your neighbors and your friends. And so if there was 10 firefighters, 5 firefighters in Tomiko, which there hasn't been in years, we would consider it, because that's enough to go and at least get a head start. It doesn't exist.
I think one criteria is as well, what's the maximum age for volunteer firefighters?
You care to ask any of these?
They're not listening.
Last week I felt like I didn't want to go volunteer down in Aurora, so I guess I'm screwed for a while.
Now, we tried to quit.
65 years of service.
That's what I know.
Yeah, so-
I know, you're all too old.
So, the way I look at it
I
is,
think
there is,
more firefighter than no firefighter.
so, we have women, we have men, we have senior members.
I'm a little bit of cool.
Yeah, they don't move too quick, however, they can get me a truck to the scene as we get the other stations responding, then at least we get the equipment.
When we get on the radio and let them know what they're coming into.
Yeah,
We've got
Yes.
3 people here, it's, a fully
Yes.
involved garage, we're gonna need,
Yeah.
X.
Yeah.
so as soon as I start hearing the updates on the radio, that gets my mind,
Yeah.
okay, yes, we need to call another station, we need to get more of this,
Yeah.
we need more tankers, or we need more pumpers.
These guys fight smarter, they're wise.
I know my husband was a volunteer
Yeah,
firefighter.
that's right, yeah.
But they wouldn't be old.
He wasn't.
They're
So-
the same age.
So the answer to the question, as long as there's work for everybody. Do we prefer to have the young ones? Yeah, we need some bull workers. We need those that can carry the pumps. We need those that can carry the equipment. Those that can do the entry and stuff like that. I take what I can. The biggest thing that we're running into is, and this is changes from the provincial side with the certification programs and stuff like that, is the training that's involved in it. So you can ask any of these members, and even Carol before he retired, since I've taken over, we are now training twice a month, year round. I want to move it up to 3 times a month, but I'm still got to be gentle with how much time I take with theirs.
Kind of into my nap time.
Okay?
Kind of into my nap time.
There you go. There you go.
During training.
So, yes, there's plans in place and I'm trying to move forward with it, but again, it's working with the resources that I have available and still offering the protection to the community that I'm here to protect.
But that's what I mean actually is, out on Tomiko Lake, we're mostly seniors. So
Yeah,
if there's people that want to volunteer, would that be possible at all? If you're 65, 70, 75?
We would have to look at your health and physical fitness capabilities.
Yeah.
Again, because now you're getting into the liability.
The amount of training now, too.
the amount of training, you gotta get the same firefighter training, you gotta know fire hydrants, living in Crystal Falls, believe it or not, because you take the same training as you do in Toronto.
Yeah.
So, I mean, at 65, there's approximately 100 camps from, that's gonna be affected with it.
Yeah.
Okay, is there anybody under 60 years old in the camp?
That's what I'm asking.
Like, it
Yeah,
doesn't,
that's what I'm
voluntary.
asking. I mean, it's easy to say keep the fire station open,
Yeah,
but
my,
you have one
unless
over 65.
you go in dog years, and then he's senior too.
But even to answer your question, even to keep the garage open, and keep the truck down there with the pump, as I said, that's a 200-pound pump, so you're gonna need
I
at
know
least.
that's what
Yeah.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
what I mean. I mean, the call is from, okay, leave the fire station open and then leave the truck there and the pump there and get volunteers, but the volunteers have to be nearby, right? And the volunteers
They
have to be people.
nearby, they have to be
And
available.
sorry, to me, like, I feel it myself, 65, 70, you're not 35, 40 anymore. And do those people really want to go into that kind of training?
And
And do it
that's,
and be there
Yeah.
and the year round.
But, you know, you raise a good point, but, you know, one of our employees or staff, bought a place on Sheboygan, and I know that there's a lot of people on Robbie Road that are moving full-time, that kind of thing. There are people around, and I think that maybe a push, chief, you know,
Yeah, we're
to,
starting to
a bit of a
do it.
push, because, no, it's not Tomiko, they're here anyway, so, but there are some younger folks that are,
But I mean,
around.
for this station here now, because obviously we want to talk
Yeah.
about it, there are no volunteers there.
No,
And it doesn't help to have a truck and a pump there if there are no volunteers.
you're 100% right.
That's
It doesn't make any sense at all.
Absolutely.
How far do you have to live away to be a volunteer?
at this point, if you can respond and you're willing to do the training that's required,
I'm just
Sure, I'll
thinking, would you be able to bring more people in from outside areas, if offered more money? I mean, we pay exorbitant taxes here, so we're richer than Iran.
So, just for information purposes, I've tried raising the amounts. Volunteers get paid a reasonable wage, and they get paid per hour when they're on call, or part day round. I believe, you guys are around 26,
I have
20.
no idea, I know it's been going up.
It's been going up. So, and that's something that we have found that it's not the money part of it, it's the time commitment that the members, to do the training and be able to come out. I'll call it the mentality, the social aspect now of the younger ones and even older people, and I put myself in that category, is not like it was 20, 30 years ago when I started. I've been at this for 35 years. And back in the day, you committed to volunteer, whether it was hockey coach, whether it was baseball, fire department, whatever.
That transcends everything.
That was, yeah, you were committed to that volunteer and giving your time for that. Now it's, oh, well, it's my anniversary with my second girlfriend of 3 days and seriously, I had a young member called me up one day and said, Chief, I'm not going to get any training. All right, you're going to have to make up the training. Well, it's because it's my girlfriend and I's 3rd anniversary of dating, and okay, which one is this? Because last week you had a different girlfriend and you had a different reason you weren't attending.
No, I realize that can be a problem.
You can't ask that question, by the way, Chief, just so you know.
I didn't ask it, he provided it. But,
if we have the money, if we
He's
put
allowed
up
to
the
have a
money.
couple girlfriends.
I know of a lot of volunteer fire departments that make a lot of money.
Yeah.
Like if we put up more, would that bring more people, that they would free up their time to come out and be volunteers? Is that something we can look at? And
I mean,
It's something you can look at, but it's something that the volunteer here, I'll tell you something. In 30 years, I was the only one volunteer, well, no, I'm not, there was 3 of us up there.
Yeah.
And you can beg, and you can plead, and you can do whatever you want. You're not gonna get volunteers up there. There's no fee up there, and what's the point in getting a volunteer from Sudbury and paying them to drive 3 hours to get here?
Well, I
The
think a
only
lot-
interest we've seen in 30 years of even trying for volunteers is when they said they're shutting the hole down. Just if you want my opinion, because I've done it. I've been
Yeah,
there.
I
I've
think
got 30 years
volunteers
at it.
have to be permanent residents too, to
You
make
gotta be
it.
a permanent resident, you gotta be like,
well, you gotta be available for that.
you gotta be available for your training twice a month.
Mhm.
You gotta put your time into it.
No, I realize that
And
what they have to go through, but I'm
volunteering
saying
has
is, would
changed
that,
substantially since the Ontario government sort of pushed it into the municipalities.
Mhm.
There's a lot more liability now, even for firefighters, even for individual firefighters. If something goes wrong, you know, you end up with an inquest.
Yeah.
Even though you've done everything right, they're gonna point the finger at you. It's one of those things.
no, I don't, yeah, it's
People
somebody
don't
else's
like that
fault.
anymore.
I will, just on the other side of your question, we can have 20 people, we can have 30 people coming out of the station. Depending on what happens when, is that gonna prevent the end result? Hard to say.
What do you mean prevent the end result?
So, I'll go with the wildland fire.
Oh,
We see what's going on out west, we see what's going on in British Columbia again, and we're just starting the season up there. So far, we've had good dampness, we're getting rain every couple of days. July, August, the way the weather patterns are changing in the climate, it's hard to see, but again, the big part is if we can prevent the majority of that risk, reduce that risk, it's not gonna say it's not gonna happen, but at least we'll reduce it. And again, being observant, if you see something, you call it in, we send a crew to go and investigate it or respond if it's confirmed that you've seen heavy smoke and flames.
One thing I wondered about, if there was an interest in this area among us, like to get some kind of, I'm not saying firefighter training, but just some training that we could be more helpful in the event of a fire until there's a fire department that can arrive. You know, just a little bit of training, like we know all about like how to protect our own properties as far as trees and stuff like
Yeah.
that, but where we can help each other.
Sure.
And then, yes, and if you may, or if I may, so that fire smart program, that is one of those trainings. I've also provided some pumps that are available. Our L equipment does have these pumps available as well. I have no problem showing you how you get that thing fired up, getting the members to come out and we do some fire prevention, stuff like that.
Even first aid training, you know, there's even some things as a community we can look at for you and you know, and have a group, but yeah, I mean, as I indicated, you know, Deer Lake, you know, it's closer to whatever, but, you know, and I had the occasion to meet an ambulance and, it took a long time for it to get there, so I needed to be a little self-sustaining. I made, you know, I had a good community of people that we all look after one another, the elderly and not. I had, you know, Leon Dukeshire, who Rolly knows, he's like 93, lives at the end of that road, and we all look after one another and we provide training to some people. So if there's a group of people want to have some, our council certainly won't balk at that. You know, I remember dealing with a group of islands out, you know, on the French. They're even more isolated, you know, and so we have to take boats up to them and that kind of thing. So absolutely, if there's things that we can do, and we'll have a look at that and package it. I obviously see by the turnout that you're interested, right? And you're interested in your community, so if we can do something for you, absolutely. And again, I reiterate that we're not reducing service, we're actually, because the service wasn't there. What we're doing is this fine gentleman with his killer dog there, afraid of dogs, and that one was just somebody. You know, but yeah, I mean, the people that are going to be responding are the people here, the people that are going to be looking after each other are the people that are here, and the people that are coming to, you know, knockdown fires are gonna be from here, they're gonna be from field, and they're gonna be from, in Surrey. And if it's big, they're gonna be from Vernon, they're gonna be from River Valley. We don't stop until we get enough people coming to help you.
But there's where, like Ginny said, you know, if we had an in-service where we could have a plan,
Yeah,
because, you know, we're a close group up there,
sure.
and so that we're not running all over the place, you know, once it happens, that we had a little plan and we knew, like, I remember during the hurricane there that we had, you know, back in, so, you know, you would.
Stuff like that is good, but a fire the way you're talking about, nature, you know, the best thing that everybody that up there can do?
Stay out of the
Get
way.
in your boat, get in the middle of the damn lake, so we don't have to send quite as many ambulances out to pick up the people with heart attacks.
You gotta realize, having that truck down Tomiko, whether it's there or here, we gotta come from here down there.
No, but I'm saying you can have equipment there.
I'm not talking about that, but I remember during the hurricane where you and Tom came and you checked, you checked the road to make sure that the fire trucks could get in.
Yeah.
You
Stuff
know,
like that.
Just so you know, I manage that emergency, that's how old I am.
okay.
So we have an emergency plan. And so once there's an emergency like that, basically, it's even on my phone, we have an emergency control group. So basically, we're dispatched, and so there's scene commanders. He would be the scene commander for a fire like that, or for that kind of incident. Then we have public works there, we have accounting there. The mayor is there for communication and declares the emergency. And so we get together, I was part of that, I was heading towards Sudbury, trees falling in Warren, called right back, and then bang, there we go. So that was a coordinated thing, we had local police, we had people going door to door knocking. That service will be there, that service will be there.
That's what the community can do, and I will tell you one that I get in trouble. Not, whatever. We went to every place that I knew where somebody was in. We cut into driveways, the coordination here was great. Community involvement was great, that stuff we can do. But I'll tell you one that I get was John Baylock, John Senior. I seen him about 5 days after, working with chains on the end of the road, and I said, "You're cutting your way in?" And he said, "No, I'm cutting my way in." Whether you know they're in the camp or not, go check.
Yeah.
I didn't know he was there, but he was 4 days cutting out his driveway, because he was in there at 80 years old.
Whether,
That's stuff that the community can do. As far as fire pumps and trying to fight a fire in your bush, forget it.
so what I'm gonna recommend, and I have no problem, again, I'll go back to, provided this is one type of pump that can be looked at if it wants to be purchased as a group or as an individual, whatever the case is. I'm gonna say 90% of your cottages or properties, you have garden hoses and everything already there. Making sure that those things are in good shape and can be used during the summer. If your structure catches fire, the quickness and how fast that's gonna burn, you're not gonna do much.
You don't wanna go near it.
The whole idea is you need to get out and make sure everybody's out, have a location, and this is part of the evacuation and your escape plans. Have working smoke alarms, have working carbon dioxide alarms. You hear that alarm go off, don't go roaming around looking for where it is. Get out, call 911. We'll get the equipment up here, we'll get the personnel with the equipment to be able to go and take a look at it. You have your garden hose, you can protect limited, I will say. If you have extinguishers within your dwelling or in your house, make sure you know how to use them, get them checked annually, make sure that they work. Those are some preventative items that can be done. If the place is fully involved, I'll tell you right now, you're not gonna do much. We have our time to keep the equipment we do have.
If just a note, over 30 years, we started, I don't remember when, a long time ago. We're going around, everybody remember us going around and aggregating everybody and doing training and doing how to look after your own property. And little things that a lot of people didn't know was the best campaign that we ever done here. And our fires dropped in almost nothing. And it's all about looking after yourself and being smarter with it. And that was probably the best campaign. I thought at the time we were doing it was a waste of time. But the fires dropped dramatically.
That's a really interesting point.
We've talked to
In
the
my
chief
history,
about doing that again.
our fire prevention officers, that go around and do inspections and all that, they're frowned upon. And yet, here we are, people who are willing to, we have some people that wanna come and help you out here, and then they said, we weren't very popular, but their heart was in the right place to save your life. So, yeah, so what's gonna happen, Chief, is that I think that with your fire smart and with other things, I think that there'll be another group meeting, and you have a group of engaged citizens that want to have it.
Yep.
And now is the time so that they can have it, create a network so that they can work with one another, help each other out, and, and if we're doing, property assessments, if they're willing to have your folks go do property assessments, and, that would, now that brush is a little close to your building, do that kind of stuff. If you need some help, we'll be happy to do it, and we should be doing it all over. Yes, sir.
Why wouldn't, you be responsible to supply a few of these pumps? Like, if there's not gonna be a fire station, you're saying these could be available to be helpful, why would we have to pay for it?
Because if they pay for it, their liability is on you that shouldn't be running a pump in the first place, that's the big
Well,
thing.
I don't know, there's gotta be other things. I just hate to hear when you say there was only 12 fires or 12 calls in 4 years. Like, one call is too many, right?
Yeah, but
So-
what does it pop up there?
Carl, just a minute.
Yeah, okay.
I just don't wanna minimize it.
No,
When you
no.
say, oh, there's only,
But we have to put the resources
One is
where they-
enough,
we have to
right?
put the resources as well.
understood.
So that's why you have that, so you have 12.
I understand.
But to your point though, if council wishes, but you have to understand, we have 2,000 square kilometers of bush and people that are remote. And so that gets into a real complex type of thing. It gets into a precedence kind of thing. It's not that simple to just throw these things at you from a
No,
liability
understood,
perspective.
I understand that, it's just,
Yeah. So that's the reason, yeah.
okay.
But
There should
the-
be more options.
But the message we're saying is that you have to take ownership yourselves, which you are. I'm not suggesting, I'm not being patronizing here. You have to take ownership yourself. You have an engaged group of folks, and we're willing to help. And that's where we're at. So, yeah.
Excuse me, one simple question. Somebody mentioned first aid,
Yeah.
I think it was yourself. I'm just looking around here, and one thing I noticed, there's no defibrillator in here.
No,
It's not like.
Defibrillator.
no, we've never had one.
Why not?
We don't do the first response side of things.
No?
No, so the first response would come from field first response, I believe, from here, or
Yeah,
from the
we do
ambulance.
first response.
Police have defibrillators, but yeah, we can look at that, but yeah, historically we have.
Well, you mentioned Sudbury earlier, and that's one of the things they have defibrillators with them.
Yeah, they have tiered response in Sudbury, which is
Yeah.
an urban kind of thing where everybody throws everything at everything. In Sudbury, so they throw fire and ambulance, now they're throwing them at overdoses, but yeah, so,
So,
yeah.
and the other thing I will add, because from where I came from, and Mike's well aware, we did do the first response. I've been part of that since 2000. 90% of our calls, 80 to 90% of our calls were for medical response. To go and deal with an ambulance delay or the ambulance is coming, but they'll get there when they get there.
For the simple reason right now, in all areas of Ontario, practically, not just Ontario, all through Canada, is the tie-ups of ambulances because they can't leave their patients until they've been given the okay from the hospital, emergency. So that ties up,
And
that's-
a whole other.
and that's why we're.
Yeah, no, you're right. That's a systemic issue too.
Yeah.
And then we, here with the ambulance, we didn't have 24/7 ambulance that the municipality lobbied to have, but even that is a domino effect. So our folks in Sturgeon will take off here. They're supposed to come and backfill from North Bay and or Hager. And so it's like a domino type thing, but we don't have tiered response here.
Okay.
And tiered response, to be very, very blunt, is very, very expensive.
Expensive, yes.
Very expensive. So,
And
It's one of
my
those.
experience with that is we burn our members out real fast with that because the amount of calls in there, it'd be nothing for them to run on 2-3 calls a day or a night even.
the Sturgeon full-time guys do auto extrication though, so they're responding on highway.
These guys
And they're busy that way, you guys too?
Well, we're trained on it.
Yeah.
Fortunately, we don't get trained on it.
You don't get the calls? No, I
That generally-
Sturgeon burner guys do. it.
Oh, yeah.
Guys and gals.
Yeah, so, again, Any other questions with regard, I understand that, you know, it's not a popular, choice, a popular consideration. The reality is, you had a pickup truck sitting in the garage, that unless somebody, Carl plowed that driveway for a number of years, you have that upward slope going out of it. You had 2 to 3 volunteers, Carl, your husband, and John, from Tomiko, were,
And Guy Gendron, that's the only volunteers for 30 years.
he was gone, he was gone before Riley started up here. But my understanding through conversations is that's the maximum we've ever had in there.
Yeah, four guys in 30 years, we've had 4 volunteers out there. And we had a big truck out there, and I'm the only one that had a license until John went and got his license for it.
So it's not, unfortunately, it's not something new. We're looking at the resources and being able to deploy from what we do have and what we can provide. The other side of it is, again, going back to there's stuff that we need to do to make sure that we protect our areas.
So you're not considering closing this one then?
No,
The fire master plan.
That's not gonna be next,
no.
No,
okay.
there's a fire master plan, that's a
I'm
public
just
document.
checking.
Yeah, but there's a fire master plan, that's a public document, feel free to, we can send it to you, and you
Yeah.
can see what the recommendations are.
Well,
But this was not a recommendation.
No, the intention is to close this one down.
Okay.
But then we have to be aware, if there is a wildfire around the Tomiko Bridge, you know, but let's say around Moose Point, there is no one coming in, we have to look after ourselves. That's why.
I wouldn't go that far, we got ways that we're gonna get around.
Yeah, okay, but still,
We've got-
basically, we
yeah.
have one road in and one road out.
Yeah, I understood,
It's
there's
the
one
same for
for
one personal. We have the bridge, that's it.
Yes,
That-
yeah,
that-
If that bridge goes down, I got
We've
bigger
been going
problems.
that way for what,
Yes.
3 or 4 days.
Yes.
Well, if there is a bushfire within 10 minutes, the airplanes are here. I've been fighting fires with the NR,
Yeah.
a fire ranger, and it doesn't take long. I had a fire last year down Chapel,
Yeah,
the machine rolled over, she caught a fire. By the time we got the pumps going, the planes were right there.
yeah, okay.
It took us more time to set up the pumps in the water, the planes, boom, they're ready to go. As soon as they get the call, they're gone. Just won't take them shooting to get here.
And they're well practiced on our end.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Sure will.
they are.
And like I said, they have them staged in North Bay and in Sudbury for that purpose. On average, the last couple of wildfires that I've dealt with and seen, they have 3 to 4 water bombers coming in very quickly. So you're one road in, one road out, yes. We have 4-wheelers, we have side-by-sides, we have other equipment to be able to get around.
Yeah.
I have nothing but respect for our local firefighters and those firefighters' office. We had a plane crash on Clear Lake, about 5 years ago. So,
That was in around the same time in 2018 with the,
yeah,
What about-
and, it was about a little less than a mile behind Gene Johnson's place on Kicking Road West. And, you guys are basically going slugging through bush and knocking it down. And I was like, you know, I was a resident watching it, just amazed at what you guys do. Yeah, we take them for granted.
So now that we've ascertained that definitely it's voting, why are we getting rid of the land? Why can we not hang on to that land for future, whatever might happen?
So this is I'm not trying to put you down at all. This is a conversation about why the fire station is closing. The next step would be for council to declare the land surplus should they choose to. Now, as I indicated in my opening remarks, we're trying to consolidate and put money maybe by fixing this building or whatever. I'm just giving you a sales picture. But the other thing is that if somebody provides really interesting options, not suggesting council will follow it, but it's a council decision to declare it surplus, keep it or sell it. Council does have a priority to look at what they need and don't need though, because like I say, there's a lot of our buildings and a lot of our areas that are crumbling and that need help, and where can we put emphasis and that kind of thing, and not just in the fire department, everywhere. So that's what we're looking at. But if you come together with a plan, it's not on next Tuesday's agenda. An update might be on the July 8th agenda or in the August 12th agenda. There's no real rush. The land isn't going anywhere. But if a group of people get together with something, it would be a council decision whether they like that, and they say, let's hold on. It's really, we provide the fact that we don't have use for it as staff. Okay, and then we say, we don't have use for it, and then if the community says they have use for it, then that's where they go.
So are we informed of that, like when that decision would be made, or when they're gonna propose, or what their next step is? When do we know they're not?
If we have a contact, given your interest, if we have a contact somewhere to reach, and I guess the chief does, what we do is publish agendas, right? So at minimum, our agendas of when our meetings are published online, and you know what's on them. So
it'll be on there.
it definitely will.
Okay.
But to be sure, we can basically pass the info. If I'm able to do it on July 8th and bring the discussion back July 8th, there'd be a discussion. If the discussion is happening, then at the next meeting, there's a resolution to declare it surplus, and that's the legal part that makes it surplus. So if I'm quick enough to do July 8th, then there's a lot of factors that come into play on those things, because we have a lot of issues that we're trying to tackle in a very short period of time. If there's no time, if there's not enough time, it won't be on the agenda. And it might only go on the agenda in August for a decision, for a final resolution in September. So that's the kind of time frame you have. But if I have contacts, we'll take a note and we'll reach out to somebody who wants to be reached out to. But I can tell you right now, to your point, ma'am, that it's going to go on an agenda and with a recommendation that we don't need it. So if the community says they want it for something else, then they want it for something else. But we can't, that land doesn't belong just to Tomiko, nor did it belongs to 14,500 people. It doesn't belong to council. Council is the custodian of it, and they're the bosses of the town. So, but if there's a viable option, then council agrees that that's a good idea, then they're going to say we're not going to declare it surplus. They'll probably still agree to close that, because that's a pretty logical thing. But the other one, in my opinion, is a logical thing to declare it surplus and get value for it to put it elsewhere. Certainly not your opinion, and so you have to have an argument that's that way, and I certainly won't fight it. We would present your argument.
So the proposal has to come in before the resolution?
Yeah.
The discussion would happen about this meeting, and you have 4 councillors who are here, and it's being filmed, that they probably caught my back. So, hi, there's people here. You realize that? So yeah, I make it better go in the window, I guess. So it's gonna probably come, but if I know, and I'll tell the secrets in front of council, because what are you gonna do? I could delay that, and we can put it on the August agenda. If you feel that gives you more time, then I'll put it on the August agenda, not July 8th. There's no rush on our part, nothing is changing, it's not like, oh my, we're in a hurry. So I'll wait until August, and then there'll be a discussion about the fact that, yes, we had this meeting, they seem to understand that it's going to be closed. There was a comment, though, with respect to what to do with the land, and we have a deputation or a proposal from the landowners as to why or what they think the land could be used for, and then that's brought to council. I don't say I don't have any skin in this game. So I wouldn't say anything otherwise, and your councillors would go, hey, I agree with this. When in doubt, I'll say this because there's 4 councillors here. When you're a custodian of land or an asset, you don't want to take the decision to declare it surplus lightly. Because once you declare it surplus, then it's gone. So they have to be pretty sure. Typically in the last 25 years I've been doing this, I've been telling them that typically you have to have, not just about your present needs, but you have to have a look at what's needed. And then if there is something there, I'll tell you this, I'll pick on Spring Township. All of Lake Nipissing was declared surplus. There used to be beach back on 3 Mile Road and 2 Mile Road. No access. That was really not, and they got nice money, it was nice homes. Not really good planning from the perspective of access to Lake Nipissing. And so especially in, maybe it's this council, maybe it was not the past council, maybe the council before, but there has been comments about them being a little loath to quickly part with lakefront. Okay, so that has been a council thought or principle, because once you part with the lakefront, you'll get a really nice home, maybe $1 million. We'll get a lot of taxes to this point, but then you don't have access.
We need more.
Just out of curiosity, how big is that lot? What's the size?
I don't remember. I think there's a couple 230 feet of frontage, or even more than that.
Probably 200
I
feet
think
wide.
it's just under
2 acres?
2 acres in
Yeah, a couple
size,
acres.
because apparently there is a side parcel to that, so the hall's in,
Yeah.
the garage is in
Yeah.
one piece of it. My understanding is, I would say to the north side, there's, part of that bush also belongs to that property.
Yeah, so as I indicated,
Probably up to the.
Yeah.
I don't have that info, but that info will be presented to council. It would be on our package, so when I notify you, it will be on the package. You'll see the plot of land, and you'll see the analysis that was made about the plot of land.
So prior to this all happening, I was in conversation with Mark Sayre, and Mark was a previous resident of Tomiko Lake. And one of the things we discussed with, because he says that, I don't know if he talked to you or strictly to the mayor, that it would probably be up for sale. He said there's ways that we could possibly look at getting government funding and purchasing it back and using it as some type of community hall. But he says, that's
I don't
a long
wanna make
shot too.
Yeah, I don't want to make a comment on that, but there's a lot of people that would go for FedNor funds.
Yeah.
There's a variety of different funds, but they're competitive bids and that kind of thing. Mark, God rest his soul, he was also on my lake and I was on Cash Lake, so he's a lake jumper.
Yeah.
But Mark used to make a lot of those comments, we deal with applications and that kind of thing, and so, yeah, there is a chance that you did that, but you have to form a group,
Yeah.
right? And you have to almost incorporate as a nonprofit to be able to apply. You could apply as individuals,
Exactly.
and then you would apply, and certainly enough. The easier way, though, is what we're talking about here and here, is that if there's something that a group of citizens talk about a viable issue of what you're willing to do, and I would suggest to you that we are not really, as I'm talking to you as a staff member, of growing our services in the sense that we can't sustain them. You know, we got long grass here, long grass there, we try, it's just, we have a lot of places. So if you gave a sustainable program that the community is willing to do this, and this, and you're true to your word, that will go well with council. I'm speaking like they're not here, we almost have a quorum.
Well, originally when that was crown land, that was set aside as parkland.
Okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the question on the size, the frontage is 325 feet, the depth is 294 feet. If you want the metric, I have the metric 99 meters by 89 meters. An area of 8 hectares or 2 acres is the size of that lot. It is zoned as shoreline residential. Service is hydro only on it, and access is off the top of the road. Yeah. So there's no septic or anything on that.
She's now a real estate.
No, I was just wondering, I was on how big it is, whether it's according to the regulations from the municipality where a lot has to have 200 feet of water frontage, and it has to be 2 acres, so that's what it is.
Yeah, so it has 325 feet of frontage, and again, that has the zoning
Yeah.
regulations.
Can only be one lot, yeah.
Yeah.
My understanding that is one lot?
Yeah.
Can that lot be split?
No.
No.
Not with lake, no, you need 200 feet, you need 200 feet of
Need
lake
minimum
front.
200 feet.
Even if you took the 200 feet and then you use the other one for our purposes, for the community
You could
purposes?
potentially do that, yeah. If you severed the lot and had a 200-foot lot that met the minimum size and carved it out in a way, you could potentially do that too, yeah.
Very good. Any other questions that we can address over here?
question to your suggestion about the fire pumps. I'm interested in a water pump. How would that work? If we would get together and we could put in a bulk order for pumps, would you guys be able to train us or
I'm
like?
willing to come down and show you how to get them started and how to set them up, yes.
Yes, so that, in my case, I want to be able to do that myself, right? Not depending on anyone, because if there's an emergency, everyone will be with their own property. And maybe it can be related insurance that if we get like a certificate from you guys, that we are able to handle, the basics until.
Yeah. I can do that without putting the municipality into liability
You should
issues.
send a letter.
Yeah, you know, whether it's a fire prevention education certificate, whether it's a, Frank Lupin, demonstrated how to operate this pump on this date, and do open wet lodge.
Okay. And how does that go with the bulk order? Can we just, tell you how it is, or how does that go?
No, that would be something that you would have to take a look at to see what you want.
Yeah.
Like I said, this is just one model that I'm aware of. I know Hammond's outdoor had something similar to that. What I would suggest is the small Honda pumps are the easiest ones, easiest ones to maintain. Anybody who has any experience with small engines, Hondas are one of the better.
Yeah, we're here to help.
Yeah, my son recommended
We can't get involved.
He recommended
But I can't tell you where to go buy it or what to look at.
We can't get involved with it.
Yeah.
Ask them or just-
But what I'm
Any
showing,
questions you guys have, it's not us, we're here to help.
so this one, the reason I like the setup of this one, you have your curb section line, you have your 50 feet of line to be able to get 50 feet ground. It's on the handguard, that's easy to maneuver around.
So, I think we're done.
Yeah.
Thanks, for, listening to us, appreciate it. Anytime.
Jay does have to go, I can stick around if there's more questions with this stuff.
Anybody who wants to reach me, I get paid for our residents.
If anybody did not sign in, please come and sign in, please. There's a couple members came in a little later.
No, I